Agrarian Law, known as Republic Act No. 6657, the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law of 1998. So, what is agrarian? Agrarian derived from the Latin word agree, which means a field. Exactly, the agrarian means relating to a land or ownership and division of the land. So, on the other hand, what is reform? Reform is propose something is detective, hence needed to a reform or correction. So the Republic Act No. 6657 or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law of 1998. The governments regulate the rights of the relationship of the agricultural land and between landowners, tenants, peasant, and agricultural worker. So, the agrarian reform means to redistribute the agricultural land and the landless farmer and farmer workers. So, the law aims to provide an equitable access to the land and improve the lives of rural communities and support the development of agricultural sector through the various program and support. So, the aim of this law is to provide a balance between the land farmer and the farmer, and it's provide the service of what we need nowadays.
Pre-Spanish era. This land is ours. God gave this land to us. Private ownership is unknown to almost all of the people sojourning in the Philippines, and the system of communal ownership is enjoyed by many in terms of land ownership. The absence of record will indicate this. However, there is no denial as to the land patterns that the Philippines do have to it. Those who engage in shifting cultivation regarded land as their public domain, although they did not choose to cultivate all of the available land. Those who practice a type of living in an area for a long period of time follows private ownership. However, no formalized procedures for recognizing private ownership was ever introduced. And lastly, the pre-Spanish classes who live in the community determined the land ownership systems. With regards to the land ownership practices, distinctions is to be made as the three types of individual living during this time. First is nobles. Free from a payment of tribute can possibly own lands. And second, free people entitled to cultivate lands but is required to pay annual fee of one half of the yield of the crops to the dato. And last, the dependent can never hold lands. They are regarded to serve only the dato.
Spanish period in 1521 to 1898. The discovery of Magellan leading to the expedition of Miguel Lopez de Legazpi colonizing the country brought changes to the land system in the Philippines. Legazpi issued a major policy recognizing all public lands as part of the public domain, regardless of local custom. Private ownership was introduced. Other lands were still considered to be communal in nature for the collective needs of the community. So these are the period land situation. Land tenancy under Spain, encomienda system, rise of the khaki class, early rebellions, conflicts over land tenureship, fire lands, Philippine Revolution.
Philippine Revolutionary and American rules. The Philippines experienced significant historical changes during the transition from revolutionary struggles to American rule in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Revolutionary period 1896 to 1898, Spanish colonial rule. For over 3 centuries, the Philippines was under Spanish control. Discontent grew due to oppression, economic inequality, and lack of representation. Philippine Revolution In 1896, the revolution against Spanish rule began, spearheaded by figures like Andres Bonifacio and later Emilio Aguinaldo. The Katipunan, a revolutionary society, aimed to gain independence. Spanish to American War. In 1898, the war between Spain and the United States erupted. The U.S. aimed to expand its influence in the Pacific and supported the Filipino revolutionaries. Treaty of Paris 1898. Following Spain's defeat, the Treaty of Paris ceded the Philippines to the U.S. for $20 million, igniting tensions between American forces and Filipino revolutionaries who sought independence. American rule 1898 to 1946, Philippine to American War 1899 to 1902. Tensions escalated into conflict as Filipino forces resisted American governance. The war was brutal, leading to significant casualties and destruction. American administration. After defeating the insurrections, the U.S. established a colonial government. Reforms included the introduction of public education, infrastructure development, and a new legal systems. So, the American roles that we have, the political developments and cultural influence, path to independence, and the tidings. So, the American administration is the after defeating the insurrections, the US established a colonial government. So, mauna siya. So, then the political developments, the Philippines was governed as an American colony with limited self-governance. So the cultural influence, American culture, language, and education heavily influenced Philippine society, shaping modern Filipino identity. So the path to independence following World War II, Philippines regained autonomy, the Bell Act 1946, and the Tidings McDuffie Act 1934. So this period is crucial in understanding the Philippines' struggle for independence, the impact of colonialism, and the shaping of its national identity.
Commonwealth era in 1935 to 1946. Government for the Filipinos. President Manuel Quezon created also the National Rice and Corn Corporations. It's called NAREC, public defenders to assist peasant and corn battles for the rights to the land. Second is Homestead Program, also continued through the National Settlement Administration. And second, Philippines Republic, Japanese occupation in 1941 to 1945, the era of Hukbalahap. Hukbo ng bayan laban sa Hapon, Hukbalahap, headed by Louis Tarok, were able to establish a shadow government in Central Zone that discredited the government in the eyes of the people.
So now let's proceed to my next topic. We have third to fifth Philippine Republic, Rojas administration in 1946 to 1948. Manuel Rojas was the first president of the Philippine Republic of the Philippines after the country gained independence from the United States in 1946. His administration lasted from 1946 to 1948, when he unfortunately passed away in office. Rojas' administrations focused on rebuilding the country after the devastation of World War II and establishing the foundations for a new, independent nation. Rice Tenancy Act of 1933 refers to a landmark piece of legislation in the Philippines, formerly known as Act No. 4054. This act aimed to regulate the relationship between landlords and tenants involved in rice farming in the country. And also, the Rice Tenancy Act of 1933 remains a crucial part of the Philippines' agrarian history, illustrating the complex
struggles and challenges associated with land ownership and tenant rights. It serves as a reminder of the ongoing need for policies that promote social justice and ensure the well-being of all involved in the agricultural sector. Next, the Quirino administration of 1948 to 1953. This period when Elpidio Quirino served as the second president of the Republic of the Philippines. Quirino became president after the death of Manuel Rizal in 1948. His term lasted from 1948 to 1953. And for this, Quirino continued the efforts of his predecessor to rebuild the country after the devastation of World War II. These include rebuilding the structure, reviving the economy, and addressing social issues. And Hook Rebellion. Quirino faced the ongoing challenge of the Hukbalahap Huk Rebellion, a communist-led insurgency that had gained strength during the war years. His administration focused on suppressing the rebellion using various tactics to address the root cause of the unrest, including land reform efforts. The Land Settlement Development Corporation, La SEDECO. This could include programs for land reform, providing land titles, and facilitating the establishment of agricultural communities. And next, Magsaysay Administration, 1953 to 1957. To the presidency of Ramon Magsaysay, the seventh President of the Republic of the Philippines. He served from December 30, 1953 until his tragic death in a plane crash on March 17, 1957. This period is often considered a golden age of Philippine democracy, characterized by Magsaysay's commitment to social justice, land reform, and fighting corruption. Magsaysay recognized the importance of land reform in addressing the root causes of the Huk Rebellion and promoting social justice. His administration implemented significant land distribution programs, aiming to provide land to landless farmers and improve agricultural productivity. His commitment to social justice, land reform, and clean governance continue to inspire leaders today. His efforts to address the Huk Rebellion and promote economic development helped lay the foundation for the Philippines' future growth and stability. Next, Garcia Administration 1956 to 1961. The presidency of Carlos P. Garcia, the eighth President of the Republic of the Philippines. He assumed office after the death of Ramon Magsaysay in 1957 and served a full term until 1961. Garcia's administration is best known for its Filipino First policy, which aimed to prioritize the development of domestic industries and give preference to local businessmen over foreign investors. And Garcia continued the Magsaysay administration's stance against communism, strengthening national security measures and promoting anti-communist policies. Garcia's administration faced economic challenges, including a budget deficit, limited foreign exchange reserves, and heavy dependence on imports. His policies aimed to address this issue by promoting domestic industries and fostering economic independence. While the Filipino First policy had mixed results, it reflects Garcia's vision for a more self-reliant and prosperous Philippines. And last, Macapagal Administration 1961 to 1957. The presidency of Diosdado Macapagal, the ninth President of the Republic of the Philippines. He served from December 30, 1961 to December 30, 1965. Macapagal's administration focused on liberalizing the Philippine economy and promoting free trade. He devalued the Philippine peso and liberalized foreign exchange and import controls, aiming to stimulate economic growth. He also encouraged exports and sought to curb income tax evasion. Despite facing challenges, Macapagal's administration made significant strides in economic reform, land reform, and promoting national identity. His efforts to combat corruption and liberalize the economy laid the groundwork for future economic growth.
Marcos administration. No agrarian law was made thereby leading to the continuance of the implementation of RA 6389, creation of the Department of Agrarian Reform, DAR, along with the declaration of martial law, he issued PD2 declaring the Philippines as a land reform area. To further implement land transfer, he issued Tenant Emancipation Act PD 27 that launched the Operation Land Transfer OLT, the establishment of Land Bank of the Philippines. Loophole was seen with this policy. It exempted all land holdings planted with export crops. Several limitations were seen along with the implementation of Marcos land reform programs. These are narrow coverage, as the same is limited only to privately owned lands. Protection for big landlords through schemes devised by them, like shifting the land to the planting of export crops. Heavy burden on farmer beneficiaries like having 15 years only to pay the land. Life support services that later on made many farmers to resort the mortgage. Weak farmers organizations because they were branded as communist or subversives. Aquino administration, 1986 to 1992. Upon her assumption to office, she made describe agrarian reform to the most fundamental and far-reaching program of government for its adherents to the economic well-being and dignity of many Filipinos. Public Act 6657, Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law. This act is intended to promote social justice in industrialization by providing the mechanism for its implementation and for other purposes. We work fast on the implementation of Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program. In order to meet its time limitation, he signed into law Republic Act 8532 to amend Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law. The Administration, 1998-2001. Magkabalik at para sa kaunlarang agraryo. Magsasaka. Arroyo Administration, 2001-2010. Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program Extension with Reforms, or RA 9700.
Land reform. Agrarian reform the Agrarian Reform Program until the objective of reform programs. Explanation. The Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program the CARP covered all public and private agricultural lands. Regardless of the crop planted, it also included public domain lands and suitable to agriculture. It sought to redistribute land not only the farms archer but also to other landless poor.
Important of Agrarian Reform Program. Here's the explanation of the importance of agrarian. The importance of the Agrarian Reform Program cannot be overemphasized because this is the basic step for government to make measures to improve the living conditions of the farmers who are directly related to the land
The
use.
Philippine Constitution. It is a set of fundamental principles or established precedents according to which a state or other organization is governed. Thus, the word itself means to be part of a whole. with a particular reference to the Constitution of the Philippines. It may be defined as the written instrument by which the fundamental powers of the government are established, limited, and defined, and which distribute these powers among the branches of the government.
Nature of Constitution. First, serve as the supreme or fundamental law. Second, establishes basic framework and underlying principles of the government. Third, designed to protect the basic rights of the people. So, the Constitution is the highest law of our country. It provides guidance on how the government should operate and ensures that the rights of every individual are protected. All laws and government actions must align with the constitutions of guarantee justice and order in our society. For example, because of the Constitution, we have the right to express our opinions and defend ourselves when treated unfairly. Or kanang may karapatan ta nga atong sulti ang atong gibatsyag o atong pagtanggol ang atong kagalingon kung kita na agrabyado. Types of Constitution. First, written or unwritten. Second, conventional, enacted, or cumulative, involved. Third, rigid or flexible. So first, written Constitution is a single formal document that clearly outlines government structures and citizens' rights. Example, the Constitutions of the United States. And unwritten Constitution is a collection of rules, traditions, and legal precedents that have evolved over time, not contained in a single document. For example, the Constitutions of the United Kingdom. So number 2, conventional enacted constitution is a constitutions created and formally adopted at one time through a legal process such as a vote or assembly. Cumulative constitution that involves gradually over time through laws, customs, and practices. Third, rigid constitution is a constitution that is difficult to amend due to strict rules and complicated process. Example, the U.S. constitutions requiring significant approval for change. Flexible constitution is easy to amend, allowing change through simpler procedures similar to regular laws. For example, the UK constitutions, which can be changed by a simple act of parliament. Types of constitution. Take note that the Philippines Constitution is the written, conventional, and rigid. So, the Philippines Constitution is a written document that outlines the laws and structure of government. It is a conventional, reflecting the country's customs, and rigid, meaning it cannot be easily changed and requires a strict process for amendments. We have 3 parts of a good written constitution. 1. Constitutions of liberty. 2. Constitutions of government. three constitutions of sovereignty. So, first is a constitutions of liberty. So, it protects individual rights, freedoms of speech and religion, and limits of government power to prevent abuses. Second is a constitutions of government. So it defines the structures and functions of government's branches: executive, legislative, judicial, and outlines the electoral process and administrative procedures. And last is constitutions of sovereignty. So establishes the source of government authority, defines territorial integrity, and clarifies relationships with international law. Characteristics of a good written constitution. 1. Brief, not too detailed, but substantial enough. 2. Broad, covers the whole state and rights of citizens, as well as many features, constituencies. 3. Definitions and interpretations are definite. So, number 1, kay a good constitution should be concise and easy to understand, yet still provide important principles of governance. It should remain accessible to the public and suitable for changing situations. Number 2, kay constitutions should cover the entirety of state, addressing the structures of government, the separations of powers, and the rights of citizens, including provisions for emergencies or change in government. 3. Kay clear definitions and interpretations. Terms and concepts must be clear to avoid ambiguity. Clarity in interpretations ensures that everyone, including lawmakers and citizens, understands the provisions of Constitution. So, a good written constitutions balances brevity with substance, has a broad scope to addressing various aspects of governance and citizens' rights, and provides clear definitions and interpretations to ensure consistent applications and understanding. Thank you.
So my topic is all about Constitution 1897 Biak na Batuan. 1899 Malolos Constitution. So Constitution 1897, this constitution was provisionary constitution sa Philippine Republic during sang Philippine Revolution kay promulgated by the Philippine Revolutionary Government sang November 1, 1897. So gipattern dia ini or gicopy after sang Cuban Constitution immediately after pag-transfer sang government from Cavite pakadto Bulacan. So it was written by Isabelo Artaco and Felix Ferrer sa Spanish kag later on it was translated sa Tagalog. So ang Filipino revolutionaries gi-adapt ini sang constitution para mag-cater sa needs sang present time pero wala siya nagdugay. And then in 1899 the Malolos Constitution considered nga first constitution sa Asia nga ginsulat sang People's Representative pursuant to provision and tidings McDuffie Law na approve ni sang November 29, 1898 and promulgated by Aguinaldo sang January 21, 1899. So it was titled by the Political Constitution of 1899. It was copied from a Spanish Constitution sang 1812 by Felipe Calderon and main author sa Constitution kag ang form sang government is popular, representative, alternative, CAG, responsible, and shall exercise the three distinct powers which is ang executive, legislative, and judicial or judiciary.
Constitution in 1935. Congress passed a Tidings-McDuffie Act or Philippine Independence Act in 1934. It laid down the legal framework for transition of the Philippines from U.S. territory to sovereign state. Central to it was a provision permitting the Philippines to draft to its own constitution. In 1934, this established a constitutional convention through which leading community leaders such as Claro M. Recto, who became president of the convention in March that year. The convention was to draft a constitution for the Commonwealth of the Philippines. It would also serve as a transitional government between an American-controlled territory on its road towards full independence. This constitution went into effect in 1935. The resulting aspirational constitution was voted and ratified by Filipino voters via plebiscite from October 27 to November. Constitution in 1973. Originally, it was Carlos P. Garcia who presided over 1971 Constitutional Convention but died soon after elected as President of the Convention. After that, Justado Macapagal, who is a former President of the Philippines, ruled. Drew Box Drozenes withdrew and took over as a leader. This was a constitutional convention to replace the 1935 Constitution. And on November 29, 1972, the Constitutional Convention adopted the new Constitution, but instead of a usual plebiscite as done in past that resolved an allegation like one where votes were tampered with or lost during January 10 to 15, 1973. Marcos regime held citizen assemblies wherein people is asked if he agree or disagree upon lifting martial law through raising hand method. An action also critic because it cannot verify nor assure integrity. When the result were announced by President Ferdinand Marcos on January 17, 1973 that a new constitution had been ratified, and an effort to move from democratic form of government towards more authoritarian one.
The Freedom Constitution. It took place by virtue of proclamation notary of President Corazon Aquino, a transitional constitution, while a constitutional commission drafted permanent constitutions. He, headed by Cecilia Moniz Palma, was composed of 48 members to draft permanent constitution. This was adopted on February 2, 1987. This is the present constitutions of the Philippines. Established the Philippines as Democratic Republican state. Branches of the government is divided into three main departments: the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. Introductions of the three constitutional commissions: civil service, commissions on elections, and commissions on audit. Three methods by which it can be amended. First is constitutional assembly, second is constitutional conventions, and people initiative. Thank you.
Features of 1987 Constitution consist of 18 articles and is excessively long compared to the 1935 and 1973 constitutions. The independence of the judiciary has been strengthened. Creation of a Commission of Human Rights. The 1987 Constitution of the Philippines is the fundamental law of the country, establishing the framework for its government and defining the rights and responsibility of its citizens. It was drafted and ratified after the People Power Revolution in 1986, which ousted the Marcos regime. The 1987 Constitution is considered a landmark document embodying the principles of democracy, human rights, and social purpose of the Constitution to prescribe the permanent framework of a system of government to assign to the several departments their, their respective powers and duties, and to establish certain first principles or which the government is founded. Purpose of the constitutions to the fundamental reason and goals for which constitution is created and exists. Constitutions is the supreme law of a country, establish the framework and government. It defines the structures, power, and functions of different branches and government, and how they interact, protect individual rights and freedoms. It guarantees fundamental rights and liberties to all citizens, such as freedom of speech, religion, assembly, and due process of law. In conclusion, in short, a constitution aims to create a just, stable, and prosperous society by ensuring the rule of law, protecting individual rights, and providing a framework for good governance.
Effectivity of the Constitution. The present Philippine Constitution took effect on February 2, 1987, which is the date of its ratification in the plebiscite held on the same date and not on the date its ratification was proclaimed.
So the next is the steps in the amendment and revise the Constitution proposal may made by until referendum. So the process of amending or revising our constitution typically involves several steps which may vary by country. Number one is the proposal, and number two, the deliberations, and number three, the approval, and number four is ratification, and number five is referendum, and lastly, the number six is implementation. So, what is the proposal? The proposal is amendments can be proposed by various means such as legislative proposal. So, legislative proposals, a certain percentage of legislators must agree on the proposed amendment. So, mauna siyang proposal. So, the number two is deliberations. The proposed amendment is debated in legislative bodies or during a conventions. This includes examining its implications and potential impact. And the number three is approval. The approval after deliberation, the proposal is put to a vote depending on the jurisdictions this may require. And number four is the ratification. In federal systems, the amendment may need to be ratified by a certain number of states, 3/4 of the states. So, number five is the referendum. The referendum is some cases the proposed amendment is put to a public vote. Citizens can directly approve or reject the amendment, ensuring democratic participation. And lastly, number six is the implementation. If the proposal passes all required votes, it is officially adopted and incorporated into the constitutions. So, that's all.
Ratification of proposal. After the submission, the proposal change shall be valid with and refiled. The majority of the vote of cast and plebiscite held not early than 60 days nor later than 90 days. After the approval of the Congress or Constitutional Convention, a proposal, amendment, or revision. After the certification by Comelec of the sufficiency of the petition by the people. The date of effectivity of the amendment or revision. The date of the effectivity of the amendment or the revision shall be the same day as the certification, the day on which the vote of the cast. However, the amendment themselves might be specific or otherwise. Judicial review of the proposal. The judicial review of the proposal refers to the power of the court to test the validity of the governmental acts in the light of their conformity with the higher norms like the Constitution. So the judicial review of the proposal, they will validate and evaluate the authenticity of the proposal, and then they will be confirmed through their higher norms of the Constitution. Thank you.